Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. It's almost the weekend. Thank you for joining the session this morning. I hope you enjoy yesterday's session. We are already midterm, halfway through our 7 weeks. So I really hope that you're learning something new when it comes to information architecture. And I hope you find value for your time and for your money in the class. Today, we are going to continuing talking about information architecture diagram and how do we illustrate information architecture. I would say this is why you sign up for this class. So I want to make sure that we do spend enough time on how do we go from cart sorting, from features, from cart sorting to a good information architecture based on everything that we've learned so far in a class, and then to the choice of tools. That will be the core focus. And then we are going to do, we're going to do a bit of a class exercise. I will assign you to breakout depending on how many people join in. And then we are going to have some time to work on the lab item for this week as well. So what I would do is I say, let's go to, we will continue the material, some of the material from yesterday. I will share with you some slides, some new information that I have added as well into the presentation and the deck for your review. And then if there are any questions about yesterday, I'm happy to answer them now, or we just jump in it and then we go, and you are welcome to raise your hand or stop me at any point. Are there any questions particularly about yesterday that anyone would like to address? Great. So the information architecture diagram is what we are familiar with. It's the tree, the big tree, and with the boxes and the arrows and the links that shows the boxes that are linked and related to one another. It's really just the first way as a little recap. It's illustration of our cart sorting or a evolution of a cart sorting based on all the content that we want on your new website or a micro journey, a very specific micro journey. It's a great tool to actually get your stakeholder to first feel that there is material for them, or it's becoming more concrete in terms of this new website that maybe they've been talking about. People get really, really excited about the information architecture. And I would say the sooner you have a draft version with them to confirm your understanding, the better, because it will trigger more thinking for them. The first round is not going to be perfect. And then you can just be honest with that as well. You can just say, I do know that there's a lot of work to be done, but here's what I have captured, here's what I have understood. And perhaps you can explain to them that you've done a cart sorting, and then you explain what the cart sorting is, because you and I know, but they will not know what that is. And then it's just another point of validation. And then maybe they're probably going to see, oh, what about this? What about refer a friend? Or what about matinee? What about signing up for Nightwood Theater? And then you can discuss, so they become discussion points. They're very, very powerful, and it is a deliverable that you are going to use to do your wireframes and user flow and navigation, which we will talk next week as well. But very, very important that you understand also what goes in and what doesn't go out in the IA. And then, as I've mentioned, you can use pretty much any tool, and I would start with paper, pen and pencil, and sticky notes, and then go back to your cart sorting if you've done a cart sorting, and try to group items based on what you have found or what you know in the competition and what the business wants and what you may already have on your website as well. But the old pen and paper is actually very powerful. So yesterday I shared with you my Miro, and I was not able to go into Miro, but I realized that what I was showing you, so I have updated the deck. What I was showing you was my own brainstorm. Remember, for the lab assignment, there was a brainstorm that we had to do about features. Well, the users and then the features. And then I was actually showing you my own brainstorm, but I have updated it to show you my own cart sorting. So I didn't do cart sorting with anyone else, but I was by myself. And that was my own version of my own cart sorting. But it kind of looks like an IE, but it's not. And there's still a lot of decisions that I had to make about my own cart sorting. But what I have done last night is I've actually downloaded all of your card sorting from the lab as well. And then I put them into the PowerPoint, and we're going to do a little exercise. We are 11 people, so I think we can actually have fun with the size of the team that we have right now. So I have put together. So this is my card sorting. So you can see what I have come up with. And I think the blue was the labels. These were labels that I was actually questioning, and then the or redundant, or being redundant, I believe. And then the purple was about the labels. So again, I go to theater, but I'm not representative. I don't go to play uh, on a regular basis, but I do know enough though that I was questioning some of the labels. So woman, obviously I understand the label woman, but in the context of the theater, I think this is a label that we probably have to reconsider. And then most of the team had come up with new labels as well, I believe, for woman. And then you'll be able to see what the other teams have come up with. And in fact, that's going to be the exercise. But I had something for on stage. I felt that on stage needed to probably be separate, almost a separate category. Why? Because I look at benchmark, competitor at the competition benchmark, and a lot of them had playing now, or on stage, or next to you, or like something that says about this is something that is what is playing today. You could probably also even refer to movie theater like Cineplex and see how they if there's anything that we can borrow from them as well. But again, because they do it doesn't mean that you have to do it, but maybe for inspirational ideas. You would assume that people are going there and they're familiar with those terminology too, but I don't know how much can be transposed from movie theater to a theater, but why not? Then I had the 2021 season, so this is what is either happening to, but you may think that it's redundant on stage. Maybe it's not needed. Maybe you need, though, a 21-22 for the next season to get people excited about maybe what's coming and what the prices will be, which is also different than on stage, what is playing now, right? So this is why I had two, but I don't know what the answer is yet. But there's still a lot of question. And then I had donate. I surfaced donate, and I put everything under donate for our support, our supporter, support us, incredible printing, and our partners and supporter, which is also redundant. So our partners and supporter is redundant. So I should probably have put that into blue as well. And then silent action, I had a section for silent action. It can also fall under support, and then some of you have put it into many places. But this really shows how we are also unique, but also common. But we can all have a different way of thinking and all have a different way of IA. And IA can be a very personal exercise, but you have to make sure that it's not about you, it's about the user. And this is hopefully why the card sorting hopefully has helped you to do some of those choices. Then I had a section or something for artists. I felt that artists was such a key element to the business and key element to the theater that maybe there's a section for it. But then next to it, I have volunteer. And I wasn't sure what other content would actually fall under them or not. So that, again, is my way of thinking and my grouping of these elements. But because we are expert and we're specialists, we're able to think that way, but consumer or not. But artist and volunteer almost fall into the category of roles. And then you'll see some IAs are based on roles. Are you a travel agent? Are you a consumer? Are you an employee? Are you a partner? So you're going to see that. And that's okay. Sometimes you will have a entry point based on the role that you're in. But what does this mean, though? It means everything else is probably about artists, about consumer like you and I coming to the theater to learn about the theater. So you would think that 80% maybe of the people that are coming are a consumer, and there's nothing that says about consumer, because the theater assumes that everything in here is to first and foremost address the consumer. And then if someone is an artist, then there's a place for them specifically. The same thing with volunteer and maybe with school. I don't know where I put school anymore. And then our story. And if you look at my story, the story has a lot of items, right? And I think some of you have this too. So our challenge is we're going into there's too much depth for a story. So we're probably gonna need to split. I would probably need to split some of the items and resurface and maybe create a grouping. Even though I may think that they're all related, you may have a reason to be able to separate and split some of those grouping too. And then you have community core, that is related to your community. And then I have musing. I don't know what musing means. I don't know if it's because of my French, and my French is my first language, but musing, I had to Google it. I didn't know what musing was. It's a very, very unique term. And if I'm representative or not representative, then that could be a challenge. So we have a question. Leah has a question. And then I see
It's not so much a question as a comment. It's not just
yes,
you. Musings is a really, really bizarre label. It's not,
bizarre, right?
yeah, it's not the language barrier.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's weird.
Yeah. So, but again, right? You because it doesn't make sense to you, you can't just assume maybe it's really relevant. But I'm glad to hear, and that I would think probably surfaced in some of your discussion as a team, right? This is why consulting is also not only powerful for with consumer, but if you and I are doing this together, then I learn from you, you learn from me, and then we can say there's probably a risk here with musing. And in fact, what I would do here, I would probably look at my keywords tool that I've mentioned you and see what kind of volumes do we get on musing. Actually, let me just do that very quickly because now I'm very intrigued. And let's see if I think this tool is no longer available. Let's see musing. I'm going to use Google AdWords. I told you if you can, you should consider getting an account for Google AdWords. It's free and it's so powerful. In the role that you are, designing information architecture, very impactful on the business. There are a lot of tools out there that you can use that are free, and Google has so much that you can learn from. All free, all connected. Think of Google Drive and everything that we can do. It's the same is happening in digital and all the analytics of this world with Google. So it's really, really powerful. You should really consider it. Let me just see what musing, the volume from musing. I want to share my screen so you can see. And I will come back to the questions on chat. Please bear with me. Okay, keyword. So this is Google AdWords. So it's called Google Ad. Now I keep getting this message saying my account is suspended. This has been happening for 4 months and Google is not able, they don't know why. So hopefully they will find a solution to my little problem, but I'm getting it very annoying. Okay, so musing. Actually, you see how it's funny. It says that there are about 1,000 to 10,000 searches. This is in Canada, English, Google in the last 12 months. In 2020, there are between 1,000 to 10,000 searches a month on musing. So it sounds like it's very well known, but it's maybe known to the artists and the people that are in that industry, not to you and I. But it's a completely different set of users at this point. So it's the writers, people that write script, and then the submission. Again, maybe there is an audience and there's a market, but it's not the regular consumer looking for pricing and prices. But we just know a little bit more, right? And then what's interesting is you see there's a keyword search. One of those keyword searches that people are searching it is musing meaning. People don't really know what musing meaning now, and then musing's meaning. What Google does, though, you don't have to be worried about all the variations and the different ways of spelling musing and the misspell. It's Google will look at everything. Google will look also words before musing. So musing meaning, but Google will look at, are they together? Are they in combination? Do they have other words in between? He looks at everything, and then he says, all of this is related to musing, and Google is really powerful when it comes to that kind of intelligence. So you can feel confident that the synonyms or the misspell and anything in between musing meaning, even if someone says, what is musing meaning or what does musing meaning mean, Google will consider that also related to musing meaning. So he takes into account this. There are high volume searches, but we know that people are searching. So that to me is probably a sign that some people still don't know what that is, and they're curious and they want to investigate. But these are all the hypotheses that you can come up with by just looking at Google AdWords. So I really highly recommend that you all sign up using your Google account if you have one, or just a regular. It's a very, very powerful tool, and it gives you a lot of inspiration too. Here's what it does. So if I go to keywords, I can do, it will give me ideas for terms as well around musing. So let's just see. Now you're not going to be able to see this. I have to share that too. So it's giving me a Google Sheet, and then it's also giving me data. I'm going to sort. Awesome. So muse meeting. Muse meaning in Hindi and English, musing over, musings of, musings on, thoughts and musings, meaning musings, musing or just, but these are very low search volume. You see, 5,000 is a muse or musing 5,000 a month. That's pretty high. Musing meaning. But so a lot of people are searching musing meaning. There isn't much around musing meaning, but musing is maybe not a good example, but you could put something else like all-inclusive vacation, and then Google will tell you other variations or other ideas around these terms in search volume. I would say anything about 500 searches by month, like musing meaning and everything above, is high. It's a good number, and that is really good for a few reasons. It tells you that people are actually searching or understanding those terms. People are interested. So this comes from Google directly. So that means there is a captive audience or people that are interested in those products, words, or content and topics. That's very good. The second thing is it's really powerful for search engine optimization as well. And the information architecture plays a huge role in the SEO search engine optimization, from your choice of URL, from your choice of headers, your choice of categories. So when you put a category at the top category, like let's say musing, then you send a signal to Google that that is a top category. It's a very important category for a business. And Google knows that this is a top category, and maybe even part of your navigation. Eventually, he will see it. Then he will give you a lot more ranking or more power for that specific musing when it's at the level 1 versus musing at level 4 or 5 or 6. But I know we're going beyond, but you should be aware of this. And anybody who's interested in learning about search engine optimization, you could do maybe some reading on your own. But it's all about designing for users. Search engine optimization is about, first of all, it starts with Google, and it starts with keywords what people are searching on. And when they come to your page, you want to make sure that they find what they've searched on. And that is the bottom-up approach that I've mentioned to you. And we all know that 70% of people will come to your site and they will land to specific landing pages on your site. And then quickly they will look at the top around them to see what is here, what is happening here, what is this site about. And those keywords, the more they match the keywords that they put in, the better they will engage and continue and buy from you. So all very, very important. Okay, so now you've seen AdWords. Let me just go back to the PowerPoint. So, and this was, again, my own cart sorting activity. I had musing, and then I had studio rental. So if you see what I have done in this, I have kind of like used an order of priority based starting from the business, or what do I believe is what people are interested in when it comes to the theater. And I put a lot of emphasis on the order at this time, but this is not by all means. These are decisions, things you'll have to think about. So I have a lot of expertise and I've done this for a long time, but don't expect you to be able to do all of this when you just do your cart sorting. But you have to have a bit of a sense of what should be item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4. And then the way that I've used was, I believed a lot of spectator people will come to the site to see what is playing. And I'm assuming here that this is mostly for regular consumer coming in, but I could be completely wrong based on what Nightwood will tell me or what they would want to be looked and seen as. But on stage and season, and then woman, I wanted to give some more visibility to the woman. I think it's good. It's responsibility, and for multiple reasons. And it could be a way that Nightwood wants to position themselves too. But I was questioning if that's the good label or not. Donate is very critical for the business. So the business goal they need, this is how they survive. Then the silent auction too, and I've put it related close, but this by all means does not mean that this is what the IE will look like. But then as we go further down, then I suspect that these are not as critical in terms of volumes and reason why people will come. But and then that's why I put studio rental at the last. But again, by all means, this is not DIA. But I'm already starting thinking about prioritization, and then you can validate this with your stakeholder too. Dana, you have a question.
Oh, thank you. So, yeah, just wanted to add about the musing word. I
Yes.
know it's not a usual word. It's just for artists. It's about that inspiration that every artist is looking for to get, mused and then create something.
Yeah.
I would think they just use it because they have that artist audience. They
Yes.
just wanted to mention that, yeah, we have this selection here, or this is the thing. But
Yes.
there is another way talking about Google Trends. I just checked it there. It's not
Yes.
high there as well. It's just around like hundreds. It's not much. But if it was such a word that was only trendy, so like
Yes.
something happened viral and that's a word there, they could just use it either here or in the, on the tag when people search. So they just come
Yes.
up the first thing. So 2 points, they just kept it, I guess, because of their very artistic they had
Yes.
emphasis on their audience. That's why maybe they kept it. Otherwise, for all the rest of people, they're like, what is the meaning? And another reason for keeping such a uh, bizarre word is maybe if something just comes onto the trend, something like, I don't know, anything maybe um, uh, Bitcoin, not related to here, anything like Elon Musk or
Yeah.
like the richest person. So those words just come up temporarily as because on the trends, and then they
Yes.
go off. Yeah, thank
No, thank you so much. Thank you so much. That do I say your name? Is it Dana or Dana?
Dana.
Dana. Thank you so much, Dana. So again, this is real. Like we actually think of us as in this class. We are hired to do this, thinking of the information architecture of Nightwood, and these conversations are exactly the conversation that you need to be prepared to have with your stakeholder. That means you have to be open. I am not an artist. I'm not in that community. So getting this insight is really helping me and probably helping you too. And then keep in mind that if you were hired by Nightwood, you would have had those discussions probably already with Nightwood, and they would have already. You would say, and first and foremost, when you meet with your client the first time, you want to say, "Give me your story. Tell me about Nightwood. Tell me about your story. Tell me about your business." So the brief that I give you can go as far as it. There's so much so far that we can go with the. Able to sit down with a client, which I'm sure some of you have done in class, hopefully. The client will give you the story, and then they'll say, our main audience is maybe the artists, because we need the artists and we want to be known by the community of artists. And then there's something very, very trendy right now called musing, and artists are coming and looking for musing, and it's cool. So and then you gain knowledge, and then you make notes, and then when you see musing, you understand what musing is. So here, me, based on what I know from what you said, Dana, then I would probably move artists and musing together, like in my card sorting now. Or maybe there will be an artist that will do that card sorting for you, and they will bring artists and musing together. In fact, your card sorting, if you were to do this for Nightwood, you would do a card sorting for regular consumer, you and I, who are just looking for entertainment. Then you would probably do a card sorting with the school. But I would say your second highest priority, probably for your card sorting, is probably with the artist community. And then they would have a completely different view of the card sorting, which is fine. And they would probably not be so familiar maybe with the consumer side, which is what you and I do. But when it comes to artists and music, and you would do the artists, I would say you would probably do the chord setting with at least 10, 15, maybe artists. And hopefully after 5 and 6 or 7, you will start seeing patterns. And this is where you can start thinking about, I think I have enough. I know enough about the carding in the community and artists and what I have seen in their card sorting, that I feel that music and artists is together, and they'll have a section and they'll have this, right? Because based on what you have seen. So, but this is what is being open and knowing that you're not the user. And you see, like for me, I'm not a user, and most of us are probably not in the artists, and those that are, then musing is a term that we can all relate with. But this is why we do UX. This is why we do research. This is why we do cart sorting as an activity, so that we get into their shoes and we actually, well, it's not so much we're getting into their shoes. We're hearing it from them. We're validating from them. And if you use Think a Lot, you would probably learn a lot. And then I put student rental as a third one. So that was my my cart sorting. But what I have done, and thank you for all the insight from the class. That's really, really helpful. I have created for you, trying to reduce by the size of my Zoom because it's way too large. Let me just go back to it. I have created a little checklist. So that's my own little invention at 5 a.m. in the morning. So I sometimes wake up at 5 and I'm in bed and then I send myself notes. So that is my 5 a.m. this morning results of waking up. I came up with this little bubble checklist. So I thought I would put a little checklist or one slide to help you. And I see that we still have some questions on the chat, but I will come back. So I've created a little checklist to maybe help you about designing when you're designing your information architecture. And I used the bubble. I thought, oh, there's a bubble acronym. I start with business goal. So I'm kind of like architecting. I'm doing some information architecture of trying to bring together so far what we've discussed that is really important when you think of your IA. So I'm not even thinking yet about diagram, the diagram of the IA. The diagram is the easiest part, as I said, but making sure that you're going through your bubble. So feel free to use bubble. Maybe I should trademark my little bubble. So it starts with the business goal. So Knightwood has some very, very specific objective, and it will tell you. At the end of the day, they're in business. They're in business for a reason. We involve consumer to help us with cart sorting, but we don't expect consumer to tell us how labels, what labels should be, and how where things should be. That will be your decision. That will be your decision and your recommendation based on what you know from the business, from the user, and then what you've seen from all the users, right? So the business goal. So the cost is this where the revenue generating. Think of how do I get money? With Knightwood, I get money from donate. So donate is an important piece. So that will tell you maybe there's a special area or a special location for donate, or a special call out for donates. And then savings, never forget about. There's also a saving. There are saving micro journeys. There are saving paths. So an example of a saving path will be track my order, view my order, get a refunds, contact someone, but maybe hopefully contact someone online, because when I call someone, it's expensive. But the things that will save Knightwood, or the thing that will save the business the money, are as important in the elements of the micro journeys that will bring money. So never lose sight of that. And that will be, now you're falling into the existing consumer side. So you could very well decide that your IA, mind you, we're not looking at an IA now, but maybe you will get to say all of these elements here are related to getting money. And then all of these elements, I'm just fictitiously, maybe this is about saving cost saving. The user doesn't know this, but the user, the chances are he will see, if I'm a new customer, these elements here will resonate with me as a new customer. And if I'm an existing customer, these elements may resonate with me as an existing customer. An example would be buy, discover, inspire, if we were on the travel side. But then very close next to it, I'll see manage my account, manage my booking, view my booking, track my order. So you're almost putting a line. But if you are, remember the grocery shopping, I go into the grocery shopping, I know where to go, and I know if this is where I'm going. I'm looking for a meal, I will go. If I'm actually looking, go for a refound or the cash, I will look for this and I will find it. So this is how it works. It doesn't matter all of these other items that you will see. If this is what I want, I will forget about this. I will just ignore it. I will look, I will glaze. So you can guide people and help people to get that feel that there's something for them. Very, very powerful. That's another way that you can divide it up. The user goal and stages. So we just talked about the user goal. The user goal and stages. Knowing what the user wants. And this is why in the lab or even the chord sorting, we always start with what are the goal, and then who are the users, the different type of users, and then what are their goals. And trying to match the goals to even labels at some point will be very powerful, because the chances are it's also matching keywords, matching the things that people type in. So music will match, will resonate with artists. What is playing, or a theater near me, or playing, or show, like these are things that we know that are matching a specific goal, and the chances are this is what people are thinking of when they're actually thinking of that goal. So the sooner you can introduce the consumer choices of labels, and this is why with chord sorting, you're asking them to give you some ideas of groupings of how they will call on these cards. So they're giving you hints on how they actually think, what is at which level they're thinking in the category. If you remember, we've said categories. You can have dogs, or you have very specific kind of breed of dogs, and then, but some people will say a dog, but some people will say a poodle, some people will say a Winnie dog, like they're going to be, and other people say mammal. So you never know where we are in the categories. And it's like our furniture example. Remember, furniture for us meant many things: chairs, sofa, chair, table, and then some of them go very sophisticated. So, but the closer you can start matching to the user, and then you carry through this UI, I would say the better, because people will become familiar and you'll educate them. So the intent with your information architecture is that eventually the labels that you will see there will be the labels that you will see on the site. That is your intent. But for your first draft, your second draft, you may want to be reassure people that there'll be flexibility to change the label. Otherwise, they're just going to be caught up in the label. They're not going to be able to think past that, and you're not going to be able to get approval. So first B for business, U for user, B. The second B is for basic. So I know it's a lot of B's, but basic. Avoid too many details. The details are what I have outlined on the right-hand side of this slide. So and then breadth versus depth. I would say I'm a real proponent of using breadth. I prefer to have more items at this level because it gives a visual sense. People will see that there's something for them, and you're gonna have minimum layers here. Some of you have 1, 3, 4, 5 categories, but look at this guy for our story. It's a long list, so perhaps we may have to even split this category too as well. So breadth is a better solution for multiple reasons. It's quicker to get access, they're less level, and you give more visual sense. And you remember, if the consumer comes to a page within your site, the more items are available and visible to them, the more sense they will make about your site, and maybe they will want to discover too. Labels, very important. So the alpha bubble, labels, understood, clear, based on high keyword search volumes. Very, very important. And I've shown you some tools for this. And expandable. So your information architecture has to be expandable / scalable. That means if I need to add a new page, or if I need to add a new category or a new section, I need to be able to do so and not have to feel that I have to completely undo my information architecture. So you have to think about, is it going to be easy to add a new element? Is it going to be easy to add a new category? Is it going to be easy to add a new page, so that I can expand? And you hope that your business will expand, so will your IA, and you will not have to redo it and undo. That's really, really important as well to consider. If we think of, or story, for example, is a very, very scalable item. I can put a lot of things in under my story. In fact, there are already too many items. Donate, I think donate is pretty unique. And hopefully I'll be able to add as many categories if I want. But again, this is not my site, but you think that this is going to be your site, your navigation. You should consider having more categories and be able to add categories. But on stage, I can add as many items here if I want. I could have 10 things playing, right? I don't have to rethink. My on stage will include all of these items. But Nightwood has surfaced the lawyer show at the top. And there's probably a reason. And the reason is probably because it's very community. They probably get a lot of money here. And it's one of their primary maybe revenue generating as well, that they wanted to actually put it at this level. But the risk with putting one show here, what do you think will the risk is? Let's say that you work for the theater that has multiple shows, but then you've actually taken one up, you've put one up. What do you think is going to happen with this show, with this show, with this show? If you've had experience managing IAs, you may be familiar with that. When you expose one specific element, like a show at the top, like, and think of this, maybe this is going to be your top navigation. We're going to talk about navigation. The risk that you take is this, the person who is in charge of this show here, the Rising Moon program, they will ask you too. They'll say, I bring my show here. Then the next person here will say, bring my show here. Pretend that this is your navigation. You're going to run into a challenge where everybody will want to have their show there. Then what's going to happen? You're going to have too many items, and then you're going to lose. You're not going to see the Laura show anymore. This will really, really happen, and this is going to be one of your biggest challenges. Everybody will want to be here. Everybody's going to fight for some spot here, and it's okay. It's okay, and they are fighting with reasons, because when you put something here, it will get visits, it will get clicks. Okay, so this is why you need to be really, really clear on what is in this area, what will make it to this area. And you will find that there are a lot of items that can actually be there. Let's pretend that this is our navigation. You need to be clear on how you've made decisions, how you make the priorities, because you're going to be making choices, you're going to be making decisions about what goes underneath here. And what's going to happen is the people that own these items, they will try to be here too. They will do that. They will try to do that. You need to be really, really clear on the priorities and how you've made choices. And there is no one answer. But if you follow this rationale, this will help you really, really strongly. And I will say this is the most difficult part when it comes to information architecture. And you're not going to be able to say yes to everybody, because you're going to really, really make it very, very cloudy and very, very difficult for the consumer. You cannot have 20 elements on a navigation, for example, because at the end of the day, it's really going to be like worse than your grocery store. There's a limit to how many you can have. What is the limit? I've heard 7, 8, or 9. But eventually, if you have too many options and they all look very similar and they all resonate very similarly, then the consumer is really not going to know what to do. And then he's going to end up clicking, guessing, and then abandoning and bouncing. So you have to be careful. Let me go to some of the question on the chat. Is there an average number of categories we should have? What is a good number? So, Ansha, what I would say is, depending on the size, but then mobile is, then mobile makes it a big challenge and a big obstacle. 5, 6 items. So again, let's see Adidas, how many items they have. I think the number is, maybe I've heard 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But I don't think there's much more room for a site like Adidas. So I know it's not on screen, but I think Rogers, for example, has too little items. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Like you see, Sunwing has 10. There's not like one rule, but I would say 2 or 3 items is not enough. 2 and 3 items is really too light. You don't get enough of a visual set, and then sorry, I made the same mistake as yesterday. I've typed in Rogers and collaborate. So it really depends on the number, on how much content there is. But Rogers has 3. It's not enough. You need to have more. I would say 5, 7, 6, 5, 7, 10, depending. Some browser, some sites will have space for 10, but I would think that maybe 7 is a magic, 5 to 7 is probably a magic number. But 2 or 3 is not enough. You just, that really means, depending on how much content, and Rogers has a lot of content, that means you're going to go very, very deep, and deep is not good. It's not the preferred option. I've lost the chat, so can anybody maybe ask me the question about some other questions that were in the chat? My apology, they got erased when I've exited. Or perhaps I've answered the question as we were going. But if it comes back to you, please feel free to come on voice. Labels, we talk about label and scalable. So typically in the eye, in your diagram of the eye, a box is a page on your site that has a unique URL as well. Then what will be your priority based on? So your priority will be based, Dana, on exactly the bubble. So the bubble, I would say use your bubble. Start with the business goal. What is the business trying to do? Knightwood, they want to donate. They need donation. They need donation, and obviously they want people to buy. Probably passes. I think they prefer people that buy passes and people that buy one time, like show one at a time. So then you know that passes and donate, you could probably market to yourself as a special color, not on the eye, but for you, that these are items that are really important to the business, and maybe also who is the most important consumer to the business. Maybe they're going to say it's the artist. So then you put the artist. But we know that you and I are consumer. We are the consumer. At the end of the day, you need consumer to come and buy tickets. So you would start with everything that you know about the business. Then you go down with the user. What are the user goals? And then the user stages. And what are the reasons why someone would come to my site? And then you would probably put the boxes that have to do with your user goals, and then have them in the box, and you remember about the users. And then you could go with breadth of depth. So how many do you want to show? How much content there is, but maybe there are 3, 6, 7 user goals, and maybe you're able to match 3 or 4 of the user goals with also your with the business goal. So if we go back to my example, on stage, the season, what's playing now, and the season passes. That is to do with my user goal who's actually interested in buying my show. Maybe I do want to donate as well. And then maybe I want to participate in silent action. There is something for almost, and you almost have you have 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 4 items that have to do with the regular consumer. So you could almost play with percentages. So let's say you're going to have 5 items to your as 5 category. Maybe you're going to say, if 2/3 of my audience is the main consumer, maybe you can have 2/3 of the 5 to dedicated to consumer. You can do this. Like, you can decide on the formula if you want to. Like, you can really, really have your set rules, but then it's in your back of your mind, and you can actually even talk to the business and say, what about? I have done that for wireframing. I have allocated a percentage based on what my percentage of my business will come from whom and how and which path to. So you can be very, very specific if you want. But if I'm an artist, then I will see something for artists, and there'll be more, and they're probably going to be amusing. Our story benefits everybody. It benefits your people that want to donate, benefits people that want to support, people that want to invest, benefits your consumer. Maybe I picked Knightwood because I know they're involved in the community. I've read about them. I found them. So you're addressing a lot of people's needs. And then the schools. The school is very, very niche. They have a very, very special needs. Yes, they want to know what's on stage too, but probably not buying passes. But they definitely want to know something or see something that speaks about schools specifically. And then if they have virtual classes, so the school will hopefully, if that's an important audience, then they get maybe one box or one area, one section. And then the studio rental is very niche. Maybe the studio rental is actually not even like a top category. Maybe the business will say, you know what, Dana, studio rental, it's not really super key for us, so we don't even want to have something as a category or top level category by itself. Then you have to find a room for studio rental. Then you know what? Maybe it goes under a story. That because the business told you it's not a big thing. And the chances are people will probably go to find studio rental on Google. Let's say studio rental near me. And then Nightwood will have done a good job. They'll have keywords on that speak about studio rental. And then you will click on it on Google and you'll come to the studio rental page on Nightwood. And then you'll see if it's relevant or if it's what you were looking for. Maybe you've never heard of Nightwood. In fact, that's the power of SEO, search engine optimization, is for people that don't know your brand, but they go studio rental near me. So you want to be there, and you want to be there for people that don't know you. And then they'll come and discover. And this is where it becomes all relevant. When we say bottom up, I will come and look for studio rental here, but then I'm going to look up and say, oh, Nightwood, or story, artist, on stage, donate, silent action, or their story. Then you explore. So you come for a very specific need, but then eventually you explore, you discover. This is how you prioritize. There's no one answer, but start with the checklist. Really, really start with the checklist. And you can even play with the order as well. The order of the items or the grouping eventually will be reflected in UI. And then you can say to the business, and this is why you need to understand the business. First and foremost, at the beginning, the business. Why is the business doing this site? Why is the business redoing the information architecture? Remember the very, very first week, we talked about trigger. What triggers a new IA? Maybe it's not a new website. Maybe Nightwood just want to do a redesign. Why? Because maybe their business priority have changed too. The focus has changed. And it's really, really difficult for them to even add a section. Remember I talked to you about scalability. Maybe today they don't have artists. Maybe artists is non-existent. They don't have artists and they want to create artists. Maybe their current information architecture makes it very difficult, or perhaps not. But I'm thinking they probably learn more things. Maybe people are actually not going to a specific page here that is here. People are just not finding, not clicking. I don't know. And then they want to see if there's a better way if there's a need perhaps to bring a section to the top. There's multiple reasons. So at the beginning, before you even do IA, you need to sit down, listen, ask questions. Let the business talk to you about their priorities. Maybe Nightwood's priorities have changed. Maybe they're more about artists now. Maybe they're introducing silent action as well. So it will be based on multiple things, and there's no one recipe, but you need to ask questions. And I would say start from my bubble. Start with the bubble. The business and the user goal will tell you so much. The rest is you. You will guide them on avoiding having too much details in your IA, because this will make things much longer for you to get approval on the IA, because they will look at pop-ups, they will start thinking of links, they will start thinking of navigation, they will start thinking of feature. This is too early. It's too early. This is why I said no detail, very basic boxes. And labels, understood labels, speaking to them, but speaking to the consumer, speaking to the user. Because remember, air miles are very familiar with the labels. They know what offers mean. They know what rewards mean. But for the regular consumer, if you do good sorting, I think you'll have big surprises. So you can't just listen to the business for when it comes to user terms, but you would hope they will know about their business. They will be able to tell you about their consumer. They should know them inside out. So typically in an IA, this will come later, but I did mention a box on an IA usually is a page. It's a page that has a unique URL on your site. It's on your site. You don't put boxes in an IA that will take someone to another place, to another website. You don't do that. It's really just about pages that live onto your own domain, your website. So it's everything that lives within Nightwood. You don't put pop-ups. You don't put a pop-up on your information architecture. A pop-up usually is a pop-up you're trying to bring them to another page of your site. This is too early. This is not the time to do this. Your eye is to show the pages, all pages that will live, or the structure, or how people will get to a page from your site. Starting from the top, starting from home, to all the categories and the choices that are presented to them. And all of these main categories have unique URL, and then the page within them hopefully have will have a URL that will say something, Nightwood/onstage/The Lawyer Show. Nightwood.com/2021 season/Lost Together. Nightwood/woman. Nightwood/woman/a dozen woman. Nightwood/donate. Donate/our supporter. And maybe our supporter will have subsection too. So all of these live on your site and have unique URLs. And then the choice that you will make in URLs also has an impact on search engine optimization. Again, the rule is call it what it is. Call it what user will type in. Call it to match your grouping. Call it to match your label. Call it to match your what the user, you know that the user know you for. If musing is what artists know and they will type in, then you can call it musing and it will be /musing. Then it'll be /musing, how to submit /musing, whatever categories that you have. And you can, if you want to know IA, I've done this. I have shown what I think top navigation will be. I have shown what I think the utility navigation will be. By utility, it's what the typical things that you're normally going to see. Login, my cart, my wish list, sign in, all the things that have nothing to do with iWood that you can think that are generic to any website. FAQ, help, that I hate. And then you may have something that will indicate your footer navigation too. But typically your footer navigation are links that will take you to somewhere inside your site. Like you'll see Media Center, you'll see About Us, that you'll have links that will say Contact Us. They all live here. So you don't need on UI to really show footer navigation. It's too early, which we will talk next week. But you could show login, sign in, cart, wish list. You could almost show them here if you wanted. We're going to talk more about this next week, but it's okay. But you would probably show them in this area and see call utility, or you would call it utility bar as well. We're going to see more example. So I hope this is helping, Dana, your question about prioritization, but there's no one way, but use the bubble way. And then it's a framework. There's no one recipe for IA, right? So I'm teaching you a framework to be able to do good IA and ask yourself the right question. 11:39, this class is going very, very fast. Are there any questions or any comments about IA so far and how we go to diagram? We're here until 12:30, so we still have about an hour or 40 minutes or 50 minutes together. So, and I'm not in a rush to really go into diagrams because I think diagrams is the simplest way. So, and if we have to go into diagrams, the details of diagrams on Tuesday for in other session, we could. But at this point, you will know enough to be able to do your lab assignments, which we have to make sure that we talk about. Let's talk about the lab assignment. So we're going to talk about the lab assignment, and we're going to talk about the that is due for Feb 17. And thank you for the cart sorting assignment with the zoo. I think I received several of them, and I've seen some of them. They're pretty good. The ones that I've seen, I was really, really impressed with the quality. And I will tell you, Miro is so much more friendly, and it tells a much better story than Excel. So as some of you may have read the book called Emotional Design from Donald Norman, which I think I have the book behind me. Has anybody read Emotional Design? Emotional Design from Norman Donald? Let me see if I have it here. I have it somewhere. Very, very good book. Let's see, emotional. Okay, I'm gonna put a URL here. It's an old book. Actually, this is a newer version. Yes, it is by Don Norman. Yeah, it's the design of everyday things. But I think it says something about emotional design, the design of everything. Well, I got it wrong, or maybe it was also called emotional, but it is the design of everything. Thanks, Mert. Thank you. Yes, it's a good book, or maybe it's emotional. I don't know. Yeah, no, I think it's really called emotional design. Now I'm all curious. Maybe it's the design of everyday things. Emotional design. Yeah, 2005. It is emotional design. Okay, but it's why we love everyday things. So I think it's just another version, and then he's wrote a different version. The long story, short story. If you're gonna design eyes, you should probably think of emotional design because he talks about consumer too. Emotions and about consumer. The same wine in the pretty bottle of wine will actually psychologically taste better than the same wine in the bland bottle. Okay, so people are visually attracted. People think we are attracted to things that are visually appealing. We actually to the point that we think that the same wine tastes better. The same is better depending on what maybe they look. And this is where sometimes we're disappointed as well because we expect that the wine may actually be very, very good, but then when you taste it, it's actually not as good as the wine that maybe is cheaper or in not as pretty bottle. So it really talks about a lot of little things that we just take for granted as well. So where was I going with this? Okay, assignment, emotional design assignment. So the things, yes, I was saying Miro. The assignment in Miro, particularly for this kind of assignment in Miro, is so much better and so much easier even for me to see it and see your story. I can almost feel the card sorting and what you have done. So thank you for having done it. Let's look at the lab or even the for this week for the assignment that is coming up. So let's look at the lab for this week. So the lab this week, I think, will be very, very easy because you've done a good job with card sorting for Nightwood, and now you're going to do an IA. And I would say that if you have not found a tool or not used a tool for doing information architecture, use Miro. Miro has a template for information architecture, and I think I put a link to one of the template, or you can ask one of your colleagues. I'm sure someone will have a way for you. But you will, if we don't get to the details of doing information architecture diagram, I think you have enough now to still ask yourself, go through Bubble, use Miro, the most basic information architecture, and do the lab, this lab. So, and my Blackboard just froze on me again, so bear with me. Hopefully I'm not gonna have to get out and go back again. So basically, this, I believe, if I remember correctly, you can do individually if you want, or you can do it with your team. It's up to you, but I need a submission from all of you. Everybody has to submit. Everybody has to submit their own information architecture. If you want to submit me a link to your Miro, to your individual Miro, that's good. If you want to do it in Excel or even PDF, it's okay too. Honestly, the format to me, Miro I like, but if it's a PDF that I can clearly read about your information architecture, I will be happy. Put yourself in my shoe. I will look at 60 of them. So the more, it has to be easy. And if I have a hard time to read your IA, understand your IA, this is where you lose points too. It's important. The delivery of your visual is as important than for me to understand that you've done the steps and you followed the step you should follow. So what you have to do for the lab. So the lab is due for Sunday by midnight. It's individual project, but you can work together with your teams on step 1 and 2 if you want. Or you can work individually for the entire lab assessment. You have to take your card sorting from your Nightwood Theater project. So from the lab from the week before, you have to take your final card sorting and you have to build an IA. So, and you have to submit this to me by midnight. So, and it has to be individual submission. And using the link under assignment, there's a link for this week's lab for the IA lab. For each category in your card sort, level 1. So I need level 0, which will be your home, and then level 1, which will be your main category. So you need to decide of your subcategories too. So I need to see your level 1 that you will propose in your information architecture, and then your subcategories as well, which I'm sure you will all have some subcategories. If so, go ahead and do this. You can sort each category with simply organize directly your choice. It's up to you, but you need to preserve as much of your cart sorting from your exercises because they were based on your user. But you can make some adjustments because maybe you found that you've learned more about the business or what you've seen from some competitor, and maybe you want to make sure that you think that there's a better grouping or maybe even a better looping label as well. So you have, and then so that would be first. The second one, examine your subcategories, your level 2, and determine if you need to break any of these down further. So you're going to need to agree on level 1. You need to agree on level 2 and see if you need more subcategories. And how do you know this? If you have, let's say our story has many, many categories, maybe you need to have a new categories even and take some elements out. So you have, this is the exercise you have to do. And then how do you do this? Use the bubble. Then you have to document your result in an eye diagram. Ensure you consider the order of section as you go. So I told you, my order was based on my business priority. What is playing now? Season pass, donate, support. So I had a bit of a sense of order based on the business. So make sure that the order is taken into account. And how will you know that? It's going to be through your business and also your user. Who are your main users? And I would say your main users probably want to see very quickly some choices for them. And I said, I'm assuming that my eye is for consumer. And then I'm going to, everything to the left almost going to be for a consumer who's buying. Then I'm going to have my artists, and then I'm going to have my schools. But almost to the left, my consumer. This may be one way you can explain it to. And then just be sure to have a rationale for why you order your diagram in the way you did. So I need some notes. You need to put some notes to why this eye. If you submit just me a diagram with no notes or nothing that explain your rationale, you're going to lose points. It's 50% of the equation. I want to understand why you're making those choices. Because anybody can make choices. Any IA is good. My IA is different than my cart sorting is different than your cart sorting. And you will see this. Then create a PDF, or you can submit, you can create a PDF, or you can give me a link to Miro. I don't care. And then just make sure that it will make sense for me. I need to be able to see your eye. I need to be able to see your notes, your rationale. If you want to put the bubble there and say, use the bubble as your reference and maybe put some notes there into your bubble to explain to me, that is good. Your job is to convince me that you understood the eye. You understood the questions you need to ask yourself when you do eye, and you convince me that you've made the choices that you've made make sense. They're aligned with your rationale. So that's really important. Your eye, I'm not, unless I feel that your eye is completely off and completely outside of Nightwood, and I feel that the categories that you've chosen are completely off. And I will tell you that if I feel that, and I will tell you what I think maybe there's a better opportunity. So far, I have not judged anybody's cart sorting because the cart sorting is based on users. I have not given you the notes, satisfactory or unsatisfactory. Had nothing to do with, do I feel that this is a good cart sorting? I don't know the cart sorting. I wasn't there when you've done it. And it's really difficult for me to judge the actual final cart sorting exercise and consensus and what you came up with as a team, because I'm assuming you've used it based on the participant that you brought in. But here in the IA, I will be able to give feedback on the IA. And I will be able to give you feedback on what I believe as an expert of doing IAs or doing user research. That may be where you may have challenges. You will hear feedback now about your IA because you're making decisions. Individually, you'll be making decisions on the IA, and I'll be able to say, what about this? Or you should have considered this, or hear what you may have challenges. But I wasn't able to do that in a cart sorting because really the cart sorting was almost like a raw data of a research that you've done. I can't judge the research outcome unless you haven't done the good research. But I'm assuming you've done the good research for your card sorting. Does that make sense for the lab and how I'm actually going to be looking at this lab assignment? Now is the time to ask questions. Okay, so the lab, very important. Put rationale. I need to understand. Use the bubble if you want to use the bubble. You have to put forward a I for your Nightwood. Each team has to use a card sorting, your final card sorting that you've submitted with the lab from last week. That is your input, your starting point for your I. Use Miro if you haven't used any other tool. Use Visio if you want to use Visio. It's really up to you. But I need to see I, and I need to see why. You have to tell me why you've picked that structure for your I. You can do 1 and 2 together if we want with your team, but I need to see everybody's own individual information architecture. It's not a group information architecture. I need to see an individual information architecture. At the end of the day, only you, Mert, will be doing the information architecture for the business. Leah, everybody, you'll be doing the I. You'll be consulting your colleagues and your friend, but I need to see what you will do as for your own IA. Okay, I have a red circle and a bar on my profile. I don't know. Are you guys all still here? Can you all hear me? Okay, good. I was afraid that I've been speaking to myself for a long time. This has happened to me in the past, where I was actually on mute, and I was on mute, and this was not a Humber, was with my other school where I teach. I was on mute for maybe half an hour, but my volume was low, and people were trying to tell me we can't hear you, and I couldn't hear them because my volume was completely on low, and no one, and my chat was not open, or no one was even thought of telling me on chat, and I was new. I think I was just starting, so it was pretty funny. They said, "Yves, for half an hour you've been speaking, and we can't even hear you." So I had to do in 5 minutes what I had said in half an hour, and by now you know I talk a lot, so imagine how much I had to condense. So that is the lab. So it's everybody has to submit. You can do individually number 1 and 2 if you want, based on what we've done today, the bubble, using the bubble, but everybody has to send me their own IA, but you all have to use the output to the card sorting from the lab from last week. Now, the assignment. So there's an assignment. So the lab will be satisfactory or unsatisfactory. And then the assignment. So there's an assignment called IA site mapping. So this assignment is due for Wednesday of next week. So the 17th, same thing, midnight, it's 15 points. And then there's a link to PDF that explains the details of what the assignment is. So in the assignment that you submitted, most of you have submitted already, you did the zoo card sorting. So to 1 level, so we had level 1 zoo. I don't know if anybody has submitted level 2, there was level 2 in your zoo. So in your previous assignment, you did a card sorting exercise for the Toronto Zoo to 1 level, level 1. Next, you will design your information architecture. It's a group project, okay? So don't confuse. The lab is individual. Everybody has to submit. This assignment, due for next Wednesday, is a group project. So you will do your IA. So you'll have level 0, level 1, level 2, maybe level 3. How many level is up to you. You can use Miro. At a minimum, your IA must contain the site name, your name, the version number, date, all screened with the product down to a maximum of 4 level deep. So don't go further than 4 level deeps. Clearly identify levels so the reader can understand how the hierarchy of the site works. Appropriate labels and nomenclature for your target audience. So you can reuse if you want. Let me share. I should be sharing this. My apologies. Realize it's not shared. Okay, so now we should all see. So we're looking at the assignment. This is a group assignment next week, Wednesday, midnight. You do need the IA for the zoo. So we use the user goals, the business goal, the user goal. That doesn't change. Now you, instead of in your Miro, you can do Miro. Now, but do a copy. Keep what you've done. I think it's pretty. Plus, I have to mark it, right? So don't erase it. Be careful not to erase your assignment you just sent me to Loleng, because I haven't marked it. Yeah. But perhaps if you start working on this very quickly, you just want to make a copy, or so that you can reuse your user and use a goal for zoo. That hasn't changed. Now you're going to take what you've done for course sorting, you're going to move it into an IA. So we've been talking about how do we do IA. I give you the bubble. Use the bubble. You'll be marked based on your understanding and application of cart sorting techniques of this project, your understanding of the structure. So when I see your techniques of cart sorting, you want to make sure that you don't lose the insight in what your initial cart sorting, but you're probably going to be making some changes to the cart sorting or to the groupings of the labels, and that's okay. But your challenge will be to try to maintain what you've learned from the consumer, from the user, but you have to decide on the best grouping and the best label for what you know, for the reasons that you have, for the bubble, using your bubble, because the participant did not know that. So very, very important. Then the good principle of IA. So the principle of IA is what I have give you so far from Bubble. And then you have, in this week's material, you have tons of diagrams of IA diagrams that you can also use and you can refer to. Pick one that you're comfortable with. Just avoid having too much details on them. And your ability to communicate effectively why you're making those choices about the IA. So this assignment is about generating your own deliverable based on your own ideas and research and applying appropriate theory and principle. So far, this will be, I expect you to take everything that you've learned about IAs or good IAs so far from like almost lesson 1, and now apply it to the zoo, to what you found. So you have to complete this as if you're presenting to the zoo. Submit to Blackboard. And then your submission should include a one-page brief introduction along with your actual information accurate. Use Miro. You can use Miro, but similar to what you've done for this assignment for cart sorting for zoo. Then give me the rationale. Give me a rationale, but give me enough that I understand what happened, why you make those choices. If I don't, this is where you're going to lose points. So if you only give me an IA that has no rationale, you're going to lose points. You need to explain to me your bubble or your thinking and the rationale, the choices that you've made. Very, very important. Submit as one single page. It's Miro, okay? So these are the old submission way, but if you do Miro, it's okay. Or if you want to do Excel, you can do Excel too, but it just has to be, or a PDF, one PDF, that's okay too. Make sure that it's easy for me to follow. It's easy for me to understand what it is that I'm looking at. And to be honest with you, the people that have got unsatisfactory, not on the lab assignment from last week that I have marked, it's because I wasn't finding the pieces that you were supposed to give, that you were supposed to send. It was not necessarily about the actual content. I could not clearly understand what was sent. I could not find your own brainstorm. I could not find your own list of users or even features that you thought that the user would want. So this is how we lose points. It's as important. I said emotional design of everyday things. I'm the teacher. I'm your clients. And if your clients, here's what happens. If you submit something to your clients and it's not easy to understand, you're gonna lose interest. They're gonna lose interest. And you know what's gonna happen next, which you don't want to happen. They're actually gonna start doubting. You don't want that, right? So one page includes both brief, rationale, and diagram, or they can be on separate pages. They can be on separate pages. You can be creative as well. So, and I know this team is very creative, but I just need to have those pieces, but make it easy for me to flow, easy to do, and you can all put that into Miro. So far, some of the templates I have seen in Miro were very well structured. At the left, I would have the rationale or the brief, the little debrief about the team. So here, it will be more about, here's a rationale for the IA that we are presenting to you, Mr. Professor. We've chose this IA for the following reason. And if it helps you to use the bubble, the business objective was to do this, therefore we gave more emphasis to these. We wanted to make sure that donate, support were visible. Then our audience, our main users are, you already, for zoo, this is for zoo, right? So for the zoo, you've already have audiences for the zoo as well. These are important audiences. The zoo have told us, maybe you can invent some if you want. The zoo has told us that they really, really care about the schools. Then we've said school, we have something for school, and it's the first item in our level 1 of our information architecture. So you just need to convince me and sell me on why you made those decisions. If it's all in one PDF, but you have your rationale on one page, you have your diagram on the second page, I'm happy. Make it so that it's going to be very, very clear for me, and it's going to be a good story. Your delivery is as important. But the difference with this assignment is I will be able to give you insight about your information architecture, because you're making choices, and I'll be able to guide you. I need to teach you how we do good IA. So by seeing your rationale, then I'll know why you made certain decisions, and then I will look to see if you've carried through your rationale through your IA. If you tell me, well, one of the business goals for our business is to get people to donate, but donate is not even in your navigation. It's not actually even on your information architecture. You see how I'm saying IA and navigation, because they're very similar. They look very similar. Then I'm going to say, well, but Mert, what happened to donate? You said it's important, but I can't even find it. Or I think it's actually going to be very hidden. It's actually going to be hard. So you need to make sure that the rationale that you present is actually visible in your IA too. If you tell me, this is important, but no, it's not as important, and we've actually chose to put them to the last order on our level number 1, they're going to be the last item. Well, that's okay. Then I know why you've put artists to the last, or maybe to the first, or maybe to the middle. So any diagram is a good diagram. And you could get, if I were just looking at diagram and I don't know your rationale and it looks good and it makes sense to me, I could give, you could get 15 points. But if it's not aligned with the business and the user, and if I don't understand what the rationale, then I can see that you have not fully understood how do we do good IA. And then this is how this is where how we lose some marks, right? Because then I can see that there's inability to demonstrate that you understand the questions and why you have chosen X 7, 8, 9 groupings, and why maybe you chose breadth versus depth as well. The more you give me, the more I see that you're actually using concept, things that you've learned in class, then I will know that you truly master and understand information architecture. So your role is to show me that you've understood from week 1 everything that pretty much that we've been talking about information architecture. I will say this is pretty much the end of information architecture. Next week is navigation. So navigation is really, really easy. And the user flow is really easy. This is the core of this class. So this is the core of this class. This is the engine of information architecture. This is your base. This is the starting point for everything else that will follow. So it's really, really important. And then the sooner that your stakeholder is actually happy with the IA, the information architecture, everything else will be easy, because when there's a question about a page, how do we design a page, you're going to go back to your bubble. You're going to go back to your information architecture, and you're going to say, wow, this is what we've learned when we've done our information architecture. And they're going to, oh yeah, awesome. You're helping everything else that will follow. So I'm spending a lot of time on the assignment, but I felt that it's important because I do think that we can get confused sometime on reading what it is that the PDF has. And I think I've seen that maybe there was area that you guys weren't clear, and this is how you've lost some points in the last assignment. Are there any questions about the assignment that is due for next week and the lab? So there's lab, and then the sooner the lab is due to Sunday, if you can send me the lab, your IA lab, your individual IA lab for Nightwood, the sooner you do it, then the quicker I'll be able to give you feedback, so that your team will be able to take that feedback and then incorporate that feedback into the information architecture lab for assignment for Zoo as well. Okay. Are there any questions? Are we clear? Okay, so we have two choices. We can do a pairing exercise. We can pair, and I can send to breakouts, and then we have almost half an hour that we can do this exercise. This class again goes to 12:30. So we have about 20 minutes, 25 minutes in a breakout in pair. So what I do is I pair you up. I pair you up in teams. So two teams will come together and do this exercise together. You will look at each of your final chord sorting or your final recommendation of chord sorting for, I believe, Nightwood. And yes, for Nightwood. And then you will discuss that chord. So let me just bring the file up. So use the bubble. Like, I actually like the bubble. So what I have done is the deck. I have updated the PowerPoint. The lesson slides have been updated from last night or this morning. So you can make sure that you have access to all of them. I have actually copy pasted all of your final chord sorting for Nightwood. And you will see how we all have, the same team has have found different results from each of your chord sorting. So think of this, we are 16 in this class. So if we all did 2 of each, so 120 chord sorting. So this class collectively has done 100 participants, 100 chord sortings. We have very, very powerful material. So so far, we've only looked at each individual's teams, but maybe we could have all been hired all together as a class to do the chord sorting for Nightwood. And this is what we would have discovered. So I thought it would be, last night, I've just downloaded all of the assignment and then do copy paste of all of your final chord sorting. So you can see what other classes have done for everybody. So you're gonna see how different outcome we have, but also how similar they are. So everything is here for all the classes. But you'll see there's commonalities and there are differences. And then what you can do, and I will give you some tips, but for all the teams, but I have not put the names of the teams for confidentiality. But again, we should not feel that this is a competition. This is teamwork. We all learn, like chord sorting and even IA is not an isolated exercise. It's a very, very inclusive exercise. So you can see what every team has done. And I also have included some example of features. So speaking of feature very quickly, the IA does not include features, but one of the reasons I give you in the lab for Nightwood, I wanted you to think before going and jumping into doing chord sorting, to think about what if you were a consumer, if you were an artist, if you were an organization, a corporation going to Nightwood, what would you expect? What would be some of the reasons why you would come to Nightwood, and maybe some even features that you would expect to be doing? And you guys did a very good job with that. That is bottom up. So you're approaching it from a consumer. You're approaching it from a user who really, really wants to do one thing. That is the bottom-up approach. And then when they come to your site, then they will explore upward, looking upward. And if you think of the business top down, the business is saying, this is why we do this. This is why we are in business. This is our customer. They're giving you the top view, and then you go and then you structure it based on what they're telling you. When you look at what a user wants to do and the user knows, then you're going from the bottom to the top, and eventually you come up with the groupings that we have. But I included features, the features that the teams have come. So the features that you have come up with for Nightwood are important too to consider. We say don't put them into the IA, but you may choose to put some of what looks like a feature. For example, my wish list, maybe there's a wish list. Then I call it, this is a section, this will have a landing page. On your IA, you would include that as well. So you have to think about it. Maybe there's some features that you want to include too. So the rule is, you will feature the user interaction and the linkings to the pages. All these things, example, you'll have to think about them. The IA is too early, but when it comes to feature like a cart, my wish list, login, sign up, joined Nightwood program, these will have landing pages. You can include them in your IA too. I will not penalize you for that, but you just have to make sure your IA doesn't become like this giant thing that is hard to know and where to go, and people get all confused. So I'm going to pair you up with teams. So team 1 and 2 will be paired together. I'm going to send, and then pair 2 and 3 will be paired together. And then what you have to do, and I don't know who is and who's not in class, but we only have 16 people. So I'm going to open up breakout room randomly. So you're all going to be assigned to, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rooms. I'm going to do 5 rooms, but you're all going to be mixed up. So here's what you have to do, and it will be it's very long. It's almost impossible for me to create the teams in advance. So I'm going to create 5 teams. Actually, there's only 16 of us, but let's see 5 teams, how we get to 5 teams. And then you're going to look for the first person to the top of the list and see, and then go and move to their room. So you can do that. You can move to a room if you want. So look for arrow. You're going to look for the first person. So what you should do now, but then make sure you download. You have to download the PowerPoint, and this is on slide. I don't know which slide that is. Let me give you the slides. So on slide 40, on the PowerPoint, you have the names of the teams, the people that are on your teams that you have to pair up for. With the arrow, look for that person. If they're not here, then look for the second person. Or I can just open up do 3 rooms of 5 people, and sorting. So there's going to be, hopefully, people that will be from different teams. So maybe you guys want to talk about your course setting. So I think that will be easier. There's not enough people. I'm going to put you to breakouts. And here's what you will do. I want you to compare and contrast your final court sorting. So I want in each of your teams to look at your court sortings, okay? And then talk about the exercise. Talk about what you see. You're going to see this, right? You're going to see these cart sorting. And then talk about what you've done, how you came to those decisions, and then the challenge that maybe you have found. But try to agree on a cart sorting, but don't do the cart sorting, but see if you come to mutually agreed groupings and labels without losing what you've learned during the cart sorting. So you're going to look at at least 2 of the cart sorting, and then you're going to try to come to an agreement on a new cart sorting or a new way of grouping and the labels, maybe even the number of groupings that you might have. Maybe this is a place to start, and you probably want to start from the top. So let's say this is one of the cart sorting. Then maybe you want to start thinking, what did we have? How many categories do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Maybe the next one has 5. Then you look at, okay, we have there's a differences. What are the differences between maybe even the labels and how you came up? I'd like for you to talk about this and see if you think that there's even a way to come to 1, or maybe there's no way to come to 2. I don't know what the answer is. I think it'll be fun. Then you can share about what your experience was. That's really the goal of this exercise. And then we can do that between now and the end. And then we only have about 15 minutes left. So it will be 15 minutes, and then maybe 10 minutes, and then in five minutes, I'll bring everybody to the room, and then we can quickly talk about what has happened. How does that sound? Yes, Leah, go ahead.
Okay, so just to verify, in terms of the breakout rooms, we've settled on you'll just put us all in rooms and we just stay in the room we're placed in and work with those people?
Yes, I think it'll be easier. And then Leah, let's say you're in your room, you can take your card sorting, and then you can be the first one to say, here's our card sorting. And maybe what you should do is talk about your card sorting and what you found. And then there'll be someone else in your team that will say, okay, here's our card sorting and here's what we found. And then just talk about it and see, do we think there's even room to like come to one common card sorting, right? Because what we're doing is we're taking 10 card sorting, but that came from 120 to down to 10 to maybe, is there 1? Do we even think that, that would be even possible? You think it would, because we could have said we're going to do a cart sorting with 100 people, and now we have to come to the best optimal cart sorting, but you're trying to do it with 2. So that's the,
And
it's just fun. but fun.
And just where do we find the PDF of everyone's card sort?
On the class, week 4. So you go to collaborate, week 4, and the class lecture.
Beautiful, thank you.
So I can send a link there if in the chat if it's quick. Let's see. I can't even click on it. It's not even a link that is involved. So week 4, the chat. Yes. Okay. So let's try it. So I'm gonna open up the breakouts, and I will maybe come and visit, and then I'll bring everybody back before the end of the class as well. We can talk about it. So bear with me. Number 3. Yeah, 3. I'm gonna do 3 groups of 5 people, and I will come and visit.